Rain slapped the city sideways, turning the alley into a throat that swallowed sound. Nia's breath came in knives. Bare soles smacked puddles that flashed with neon, her cheap heels long abandoned somewhere 2 blocks back. Every few strides, she looked over her shoulder and caught the smear of headlights bending around the corner. His car taking the turn too fast, hungry. Don't let him catch me. Don't let him catch me. The Italian Quarter's back lanes were slick with oil rainbows and old secrets. She cut left, then right, skidding on wet brick until she collided with a recessed loading bay. A corrugated steel door loomed, waist-high keypad blinking red. Somewhere inside, machinery hummed a sound too smooth, too expensive for this kind of night. She slammed her palm on the intercom. "Is anyone in there? Please." Silence, except for rain and the distant snarl of an engine coming closer. The keypad threw a cold electronic tone at her. Nia hit the button again and tasted. Metal in her mouth. "Please, can I hide in your garage?" The door shuddered and began to rise. Fluorescent light spilled over her like an interrogation. A pair of glossy black shoes appeared first, then a man. Tall, precise. The kind of face magazines call distinguished, because they don't know the words for dangerous in print. His white shirt hadn't seen a wrinkle in its life. The tie was perfect. The eyes dark. Steady found her quickly and didn't blink. For a heartbeat, he took her in. The soaked twists clinging to her forehead, the raw red crescents on her knuckles, a purpled bruise ghosting at her jawline. His gaze flicked once toward the alley mouth, where headlights raked the rain. Something cold clicked into place behind his expression. He didn't ask her name. He didn't ask questions. He reached out and hooked his fingers around her wrist, not gentle, not cruel, pure leverage. A swift pull drew her over the threshold. Warm, dry air breathed over her. The door rolled back down with a hydraulic sigh that felt like an oath. Inside, the world was a different species. The garage stretched wide and immaculate, concrete floors polished to a dull sheen, not a grease smear in sight. Tool chests lined one wall, drawers labeled in tidy block print. A glass-walled office perched above the shop floor, blinds half drawn. Under the lights, the cars looked like sleeping predators. A cherry red classic that gleamed like a cut artery, a low, matte black silhouette built to disappear at speed. The place smelled like citrus cleaner and new rubber. The man released her wrist and reached to a rack by the door, shaking out a charcoal hoodie with the logo of a vintage race stitched small by the cuff. He held it up. Arms. Nia slid into it. The cotton was heavy and warm. Her teeth stopped chattering enough to hear her own voice. "Thank you," she managed. His attention slid past her, back to the door. The lights outside flared brighter. Tires hissed to a stop. The engine idled a throaty, familiar purr. Nia knew too well. He stepped forward again and spoke quietly without looking at her. "Stay by the stairs. Do not step past the yellow line." He nodded at a strip painted on the floor like a boundary spell. Nia drifted to the bottom of the stairs, palms braced on the rail, lungs scraping air. The man pressed a code. The door lifted half a foot and he ducked under the lip, stopping exactly at the boundary where rain turned concrete dark. Royce Tanner's Charger sat at the far end of the alley, headlights soaking the back wall. He leaned out the window, all swagger and cheap aftershave, scanning past the figure at the door to search for Nia's outline inside. When he spotted her, he grinned and revved, loud in the confined space. "Hey, I know she ran in there. Send her out," he called, trying to sound like he owned the syllables. "She's got my property, my phone. The man at the door didn't raise his voice." Royce Tanner. Royce blinked. The rain obeyed the pause, falling harder in the gap. "Do I know you?" "You invited the question," the man said. "2 outstanding warrants for harassment. 1 suspended license you ignore. A balance with Calhoun on 11th, you've promised 3 different dates. You risk turning onto Rossi Street tonight, that's 2 cameras. The Charger's plates are unlucky. The cameras are not." Royce laughed, the kind that shows teeth and nerves. "You a cop?" "Worse," the man said almost gently. Nia watched the exchange with the sensation of standing outside her own body. The guy at the door didn't have to move. The air moved around him. He didn't posture. He didn't threaten. He did something harder. He let the facts sit there, heavy as a gun she couldn't see. "Look," Royce tried, voice pitching up. "She's crazy. She took things. She's mine." The word echoed in the wet. The man tilted his head, once. "Nothing behind this door is yours." For a moment, the alley held 3 versions of the same rain. Royce's blinked against it, flinching. Nia's soaked into the hoodie and warm skin beneath, like she could feel each drop individually. The man at the door seemed impermeable. The water hit him and just decided to be something else. "You can put the car in reverse now," he added. "Or you can learn what it is to trespass where I set lines." Royce's jaw worked, defiance wrestling with instinct. The engines inside the garage ticked softly as they cooled. Somewhere down the block, a siren argued with itself. Finally, Royce spat a curse that sounded thin and threw the Charger into reverse. He peeled back. The alley swallowed him. Taillights a red smear swallowed by rain. The man lowered the door, keying in a code with fingers that didn't miss. The slab of steel came down with the finality of a verdict. He turned to Nia at last, studying her like a problem to be solved by angles. "Tea?" he asked, already walking toward a small kitchenette tucked under the stairs. She nodded. Words had become expensive. Her mouth tasted like copper and fear. He set a steaming mug in her hands. "Don't spill," he said, not unkindly, not kind either. "Information." "Who?" Nia tried, but the question tumbled over itself and fell apart. "Who are you? Why did you help me? What is this place?" He didn't offer a name. "Upstairs," he said instead. "You can see the floor from there. No one can see you. You'll sleep for a few hours. Then you'll tell me why that man thought he owned a sentence with your name in it." Nia climbed the narrow stairs, the mug hot enough to sting into her palms, and stepped into the glass office. The space was measured to the inch. Desk aligned with window, papers flush at the edges, a framed photograph of a charity gala with the man beside a mayor pretending to be taller. She sank into a low couch and wrapped both hands around. The tea. The hoodie smelled like someone else's laundry day and something darker beneath. Below, the man moved among the cars like he belonged to gravity differently than the rest of them. Two figures in dark suits emerged from a side door, exchanged a few low words with him, and faded again. One of them glanced up through the glass, a flicker of eyes that tickled Nia's skin, then looked away. The man at the center of the room glanced up too, meeting her through the reflection of his own face. He held her there for one breath, then turned his attention back to a clipboard as if his hands needed a task only he could assign. Nia lifted the mug and let the steam fog the glass. The rain outside softened to a steady hush. Her heart learned a slower rhythm, uncertain of the reprieve. Safe. Not safe. Something in between, suspended above a floor so clean it could be a lie. Eventually, exhaustion clubbed her. The couch didn't protest. As she slid toward sleep, a thought uncurled and lay down beside her. That door opened for me. Whatever lived behind it had rules she couldn't read yet. Whatever lived behind it had just told the rain no. Morning arrived as fluorescent light, not sun. The overhead panels hummed a frequency Nia felt in her molars before she opened her eyes. She woke slowly, limbs heavy with the kind of sleep that follows survival. The couch beneath her was firm leather, the kind that didn't forgive bad posture. A folded gray blanket sat at the foot, edges aligned perfectly with the armrest. She didn't remember pulling it over herself. The garage floor below gleamed under the sharp white wash of light. Somewhere an engine purred to life, brief diagnostic, then silence. The air smelled medicinal. Citrus cleaner, new tire rubber, something astringent underneath. It was the smell of a place that refused entropy. A paper bag sat on the desk beside a bottle of water, both positioned exactly parallel to the edge. Inside, a blueberry muffin wrapped in wax. Paper, a banana going gold at the tips, a protein bar. No note, no ceremony, just fuel, calculated to the calorie. Nia peeled the banana and ate standing by the glass wall, watching the shop floor. The man from last night moved between the vehicles in a slate gray suit, sleeves still buttoned at the wrist despite the heat the lights threw. He crouched beside the matte black car, inspecting something near the wheel well with the intensity of a jeweler checking for flaws. When he stood, he pulled a white cloth from his pocket and wiped his hands already clean, then refolded the cloth into a perfect square. She tracked his precision and felt her lungs tighten. Control like that didn't come cheap. It came from a life spent eliminating variables. A metallic clang echoed from somewhere below, and Nia flinched hard enough to knock her knee into the desk. Pain flared. She bit down on a sound. When she looked back through the glass, his eyes were already on her. He'd noticed. I noticed. He climbed the stairs without hurry, stepping into the office and closing the door behind him with a soft click. Up close, the lines at his temples were deeper than last night. 40 maybe. The kind of 40 that comes from deciding things other people can't undo. Shoes, he said. Size? 8. Nia managed. He didn't write it down. Didn't nod. Just turned and descended again, moving toward a side room she hadn't noticed. 5 minutes later, he returned with a shoebox white canvas, sneakers no scuffs, no brand she recognized. Expensive in the way that didn't need logos. They'll do, he said, setting the box on the desk with the same geometric care as the food. Thank you, Nia said. The words felt rehearsed, inadequate. He glanced at her once, a flicker of assessment, then shifted his attention to a stack of papers on the desk. She noticed the top sheet, a glossy magazine spread, Harbor City Quarterly. The headline read, Rafael DeLuca, Investing in Mobility Building. Legacy. A photo showed him in a tuxedo beside the mayor, shaking hands under a banner for some youth automotive program. His smile in the picture didn't reach the version standing 3 feet away. Rafael DeLuca. So that was the name behind the door. You can walk the mezzanine, he said without looking up. Stay inside the yellow lines. Don't touch the cars. Don't go past the north wall. His voice was flat instruction. No room for negotiation. Am I a prisoner? Nia asked, quieter than she meant to. He looked up then, fully. His eyes were the color of espresso left too long. You're a complication, he said. I'm deciding what kind. The honesty of it stung worse than a lie would have. At least a lie pretended she mattered. He left the office, pulling the door shut again. She heard his footsteps retreat, measured as a metronome. Nia laced the sneakers they fit perfectly, which unnerved her, and stepped out onto the catwalk that wrapped the upper level. The metal grating sang, softly under her weight. From up here, the garage was a kingdom of order. She could see the color-coded tool chests, each drawer labeled in crisp block letters. Oil, torque, compression. A whiteboard on the far wall listed vehicles by make and appointment time, handwriting so uniform it looked printed. No smudges, no chaos. She noticed a scratch then, near the rear fender of the cherry red Classic. Tiny. A half-inch scuff in the otherwise mirror-finish paint. It shouldn't have mattered. But in a place this perfect, a flaw was a scream. Below, 2 men in dark suits entered through a side door. One carried a tablet. The other moved like his spine had been replaced with rebar. They spoke to Rafael in tones too low to parse, but Nia caught the shape of deference in their postures. He didn't gesture, didn't smile, just listened, then said something that made the man with the tablet nod twice, fast. As they turned to leave, one phrase rose clear enough to snag. Pier 17. Tonight. The words hooked something in Nia's chest and pulled. Pier 17. Why did that sound like an ending? She traced the catwalk further, toward the north wall where a dark-paneled office door stood ajar. Warm light bled through the crack. She knew she shouldn't. Knew the yellow line was a rule with teeth. But the silence here was protective and suffocating in equal measure, and Nia had spent 2 years listening to men tell her what was safe. She stepped closer, just to the edge, just to see. The door exhaled warmth. Nia pressed her palm flat against the frame and leaned close enough to see inside without crossing the threshold. The office was smaller than the glass one she'd slept in. Darker wood, leather chairs that looked older than she was, a desk anchored by a laptop and a crystal tumbler with 2 fingers of amber liquid catching the light. Rafael stood with his back to the door, phone pressed to his ear. The man with the tablet sat across from him, scrolling with mechanical precision. Confirm, Rafael said into the phone, his voice the same flat register he'd used to offer her tea. The charger's at the bottom of Pier 17. He was still inside. The world tilted. Nia's breath stopped in her throat, a knot of air that wouldn't move up or down. Good, Rafael continued. Send flowers to Calhoun, white lilies. Let him know the debt's been absorbed into our ledger. No loose ends. The man with the tablet tapped something, nodded once. Condolences already drafted, boss. Accidental drowning. Stormy night, poor visibility. The precinct captain signed off an hour ago. Nia's hand slipped. Her knuckles knocked the doorframe just a tap, barely a sound. But in a room that quiet, it was a gunshot. Both men turned. Rafael's eyes found hers through the gap, dark and unreadable. He didn't move, didn't blink, just held her there, pinned like a specimen under glass. The man with the tablet rose smoothly, his hand drifting toward his jacket. Rafael lifted one finger stoppend. The man froze. Out, Rafael said quietly. The man left without a word, sliding past Nia on the catwalk with the kind of proximity that smelled like gun oil and indifference. Rafael stepped into the doorway. He didn't cross toward her, just stood there, filling the frame, waiting. You, Nia's voice cracked. She tried again. You killed him. Yes. The word was a period. No explanation. No remorse. You said you'd scare him? She whispered, her hands beginning to shake. You said he'd leave. You said I said he would be handled. Rafael's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. He was. Nia took a step back, then another. Her spine hit the catwalk railing and the metal sang under the pressure. He was alive when he left. You let him drive away. I saw. You saw what was necessary for you to see. The clinical precision of it, the way he said necessary like it was a line item on a budget, cracked something open in her chest. She'd spent 2 years running from Royce's fists, his threats, his polished courtroom charm that convinced every cop and judge she was hysterical. And Rafael had ended it, cleanly, coldly, permanently. She should feel relief. She felt horror. You're a monster, she said, and the word came out raw, scraped from somewhere deep. For the first time since she'd met him, Rafael's face changed. Not anger, something worse, recognition. The mask slipped just long enough for her to see that she wasn't the first person to name him that, and that every time, it landed in the same place. He turned his back to her, walked to the desk, and lifted the tumbler. Took a slow sip. Set it down with a soft click. The door, he said, his voice returning to stone. Use it. What? You're no longer my concern. He's gone. You're safe. My obligation is complete. He didn't look at her. Leave. Nia's throat closed. You're throwing me out? I'm restoring order. She wanted to scream, wanted to collapse, wanted to rewind 12 hours and choose a different alley, a different door, a different version of mercy that didn't come with blood in the math. Instead, she turned and walked, feet numb in the perfect sneakers, down the stairs, across the immaculate floor, past the cars that gleamed like they'd never known dirt. The steel door rose at her approach, automated, anticipating her exit. Rain met her like an old enemy. It soaked through the hoodie in seconds, turning the fabric heavy and cold. She pulled her cheap jacket tighter over it, but the warmth was already gone. Harbor City swallowed her whole. The alleys were the same, but the shadows felt different now. She knew what lived in them, knew the difference between the monster who screamed and the one who signed off on drownings with a glass of whiskey in his hand. She walked until her legs gave commands her brain couldn't override. Found herself at a self-serve car wash on the east side, the kind open 24 hours with flickering lights and a busted vacuum bay that wheezed hot. Exhaust. She crouched beside it, pulling her knees to her chest, and let the warmth from the vent blow across her face. No Royce, no Rafael. Just Nia, small and soaked, with nowhere left that knew her name. The espresso had gone cold an hour ago. Rafael stood in the glass office, staring at the small porcelain cup on the desk. He'd poured it himself at dawn double shot, no sugar, the same ritual for 15 years. Now the crema had separated into an oily film, and he couldn't remember why he'd wanted it in the first place. Below, the garage floor stretched immaculate. 1,200 square feet of polished concrete, not a footprint, not a smudge. The cars sat in their designated zones, angles precise to the degree. His mechanic had finished the brake job on the Aston Martin and left the keys in the lockbox, labeled and logged. Everything exactly where it should be. The silence was perfect. It felt like a tomb. Rafael set the cup down off-center, a quarter-inch from the ottoman's coaster, and left it there. He walked to the catwalk railing and looked down at the place where she'd stood barefoot and dripping, small and shaking in his hoodie. The concrete had dried hours ago. No evidence she'd ever been there. He said her name once, just to hear how it sounded in the empty. Nia. The acoustics of the garage caught it, stretched it, sent it back hollow. His chest tightened, a sensation he didn't have vocabulary for. Loss was supposed to be clean, numbers dropping off a ledger, territory conceded. This was something else, a frequency he couldn't tune out. He walked back to the desk and pressed the intercom. His head of security answered on the first ring. "Find her," Rafael said. "Sir?" Nia Carter, eyes on her. Shelters, laundromats, transit hubs. No contact. "I want location only." A pause. Professional enough not to ask why. "Understood. Rafael ended the call and pulled up the city grid on his laptop. He marked the sectors his people would sweep. East Side, motels, the 24-hour diners on 7th, the church basement that opened after midnight. She wouldn't go far. Not in this rain. Not with nothing. The reports came in over the next 3 hours. Texts, clipped and factual. Soup kitchen on Brennan. In line. Wouldn't make eye contact. Bus shelter. Route 9. Sitting alone. Shivering. Car wash, East Side. Vacuum bay. Still there. Rafael read the last message twice. Still there. The image built itself in his mind. Nia folded small, pulling warmth from a machine, trying to be invisible in a city that had spent 2 years teaching her she was. He could let the watchers keep their distance. It was the smart play, the clean one. She was safe from Royce, safe from immediate harm. His obligation, as he'd told her, was complete. He stood, grabbed his keys, and walked to the Maybach. No umbrella, no plan beyond proximity. He told himself it was about containing variables, about ensuring the investment didn't spoil. But when he slid behind the wheel and the engine purred to life, the lie tasted like cold espresso, bitter and wrong. The rain turned the streets into mirrors. Rafael drove east, past the neighborhoods where his name meant something, into the blocks where it meant everything. The car wash came into view, its neon sign stuttering against the weather. WASHNGO, half the letters dead. She was exactly where the text had said. Crouched beside the vacuum bay, hoodie pulled over her head, knees drawn up. The vent beside her coughed warm exhaust in rhythmic bursts. She looked small enough to disappear. Rafael parked under the overhang and killed the engine. For a long moment he just sat there, hands on the wheel, watching her through rain-streaked glass. Then he opened the door and stepped out into the weather. No commands this time, no solutions. Just a man walking toward a woman in the rain, his suit darkening at the shoulders, and no idea what words would be enough. Nia heard the footsteps before she saw him. Dress shoes on. Wet pavement. The kind that didn't belong at a self-serve car wash at 2 a.m. She looked up. Rafael stood 5 feet away, rain darkening his suit at the shoulders. No umbrella, no barrier between them. His face was the same granite she'd seen in the garage, but something in the set of his jaw looked tired. Human. "You came," she said. It wasn't a question. Yes. The rain filled the space between them, falling in sheets off the corrugated overhang. Somewhere behind them, a washing bay cycled through its rinse, water drumming metal. "Why?" Nia asked. Rafael was silent for a long moment. Then, because the quiet was worse. She stared at him, waiting. He took a step closer. Not into her space, just closer to the truth. "I had him killed," he said, voice flat and factual. "I made the call before you fell asleep. The precinct captain was paid before dawn. There was no accident. There was an execution." Nia's breath hitched, but she didn't look away. "I am everything they say. In the dark," Rafael continued. "I own debts. I bury problems. I've ended men for less than what he did to you." He paused, and for the first time, his voice cracked at the edge. "I am a monster, Nia. That word is the only honest one you've said to me." The rain hissed against pavement. A car passed on the street, headlights sweeping over them and moving on. "Then why are you here?" she whispered. Rafael looked at her, really looked, the way he had when she'd first pounded on his door, like she was a problem he couldn't solve with money or violence or perfect angles. "Because you're the first person who made me wish I wasn't." The words landed soft and wrong, like something that didn't belong in his mouth. Nia felt her chest tighten. He held out his hand, palm up, empty, no command, no coercion, just an offer suspended in rain and neon flicker. "I can't give you clean," he said quietly. "I can't give you good, but I can give you this. No one will hunt you again. No one will dismiss. No. No one will touch you, not even me without your permission. You'll be warm, you'll be safe, and when you speak, someone will listen." Nia looked at his hand, the same hand that had signed Royce's death warrant, the same hand that had pulled her inside when no one else would open a door. The world had taught her 2 kinds of men, the ones who hurt her and smiled, and the ones who looked away. Rafael was neither. He was a third thing, a monster who told the truth, who saw her and didn't flinch, who offered protection without the lie of redemption. She didn't take his hand. She closed the distance and collapsed into him, arms wrapping around his waist, face pressed to his chest, A sob tore loose relief and terror in something she didn't have a name for yet. Rafael froze. His body went rigid, every muscle locking as if contact were a language he'd forgotten. Then his arms came around her, slow and sure, pulling her in tight. His face dropped to her hair, and he held her the way a drowning man holds driftwood. The rain softened, the car wash cycled to silence. Around them, the city hummed its indifferent night song. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he murmured into her hair. "I'm not offering it," Nia whispered back. "Good." His arms tightened. "Then we understand each other." She pulled back just enough to look up at him. His face was still hard, still carved from something unyielding. But his eyes were open in a way she suspected they hadn't been in years. "I need one thing," she said. "Name it. Don't lie to me. Not ever. Not to protect me. Not to make it easier." Her voice was steady now, iron under the exhaustion. "If you're going to be my monster, be an honest one." Raphael's mouth twitched almost a smile. Not quite. "Done." He stepped back, shrugged out of his jacket, and draped it over her shoulders. It was warm from his body, smelled like expensive cologne and rain. He gestured toward the Maybach idling under the overhang. Nia looked at the car, looked back at him. "Where are we going?" "Home," Raphael said. The word sounded new in his mouth, like he was testing it. "Yours now, if you want it." She did the math silently, the cost, the compromise, the blood already spent. Then she walked toward the car. He opened the door for her, not a command, an offer. She slid into the leather seat and he closed it gently, a sound like a vault ceiling. As he walked around to the driver's side, Nia watched him through the rain-streaked window. A man built from control and violence, and something underneath that she'd have to learn the shape of slowly, carefully. He slipped behind the wheel and the engine hummed to life, a low purr that vibrated through the seats. He didn't drive yet, just sat there, hands on the wheel, looking straight ahead. "Thank you," Nia said quietly. Raphael glanced at her, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded once and pulled out into the rain-slicked streets. The city blurred past. Neon. Shadows. Alleys she'd run through and wouldn't have to run through again. Not because the world had changed, because the man beside her had drawn a line in it, and nothing crossed his lines without permission. It wasn't redemption. It was an iron vow. And for the first time in 2 years, Nia Carter let herself believe in a door that opened instead of slammed shut.